Gautrain workers affiliated to Numsa are demanding an 8% wage increase, while the rail service says it can meet them only halfway. There's been a deadlock in negotiations. Numsa says management is refusing to engage with workers.
Discussions were cut short by the management of Gautrain. They are the ones who actually tried to lock us out. We've been calling for them to come back to the negotiating table as early as August the 27th, when Numsa received a certificate to strike from the CCMA. They have refused our request for engagement. They are telling us that we must take the 4%. They're not willing to negotiate, and that ultimately is not acceptable. I mean, even if it is true, if a company is going through financial distress, they don't have the right to simply impose changes. They have to engage meaningfully. And all we're asking for is an opportunity to sit around the table and find each other. There's not such a big gap between us. They're offering 4%, our members are demanding 8%. Surely we can find each other somewhere in the middle.
Well, let's take the story forward then, and I'm joined from the Gautrain by the spokesperson, Kesagee Nayager, who is on the line for us to talk about this. So, Kesagee, thank you for talking to us. Numsa there is accusing you of seeking to impose this 4% increase. Why are you doing that?
Good afternoon to us, and good afternoon to your viewers as well. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. I must just say at the outset that we reject that allegation. We have been negotiating with Numsa, and in good faith, I may add. We're just very far apart in terms of what the company has offered and what Numsa is demanding. And for that reason, wage negotiations, unfortunately, deadlocked.
So this talk by Numsa of you sending this offer by email and basically saying you have to accept this, there's no way to negotiate around it, you reject that?
We reject that. That's not true. We have tabled an offer for 4.1%, and Numsa rejected that offer. Numsa has demanded an increase that equates to 26%. We have not officially seen the 8% demand that Numsa has been referring to in the media, and we believe that an increase of 4.1% is fair in our economic circumstances as a country. So I must add to that since the outbreak of COVID-19, not a single Gautrain worker took home with reduced pay, and not a single job was lost. This was a principal decision that the company took up front. It was in spite of the losses that we had incurred and losses that we continue to incur. So we are basically calling on Numsa, and we're calling on our workers to consider the offer of 4.1%, taking all of these factors into account.
So when you say Numsa has tabled a demands that amount to 26%, if I heard you correctly, how so? When Numsa says even their starting point was only 15% and they've come down to 8% in terms of what they're demanding. So how do you arrive at 26%?
So the initial demand from Numsa was an increase of 15% in terms of salary and additional increases on allowances. They further reduced that demand to a 13% increase in salary and further increases on allowances. And that 13% on basic salaries as well as increases on allowances is what equates to 26%.
I see. All right, so in terms of, you are saying that you have been negotiating. Numsa says you were seeking to lock them out and you were not seeking to negotiate. When you say you have been negotiating, do you have a record? When was the last time you engaged? When the last time the two representatives, the representatives of both sides sat around a table? How many rounds of negotiations have you had, and when was the last one?
So we have been negotiating. Negotiations started early in August. The initial offer that the company tabled was an offer for 2.2%. That was rejected by Numsa. We revised the offer to 4.1%, and that was rejected. We then referred the matter to the CCMA, and unfortunately, Numsa did not attend. We were hoping to reach an agreement at CCMA with the assistance of the CCMA, and surely if Numsa was eager and willing to reach an agreement and to engage, they would have used this avenue, but they haven't. So what they're stating in the media and what actually unfolded is sadly two very different things. The reality is that we are far apart in terms of what Numsa is demanding and what we are able to offer.
I'm hearing the offer that you tabled and the process leading to the CCMA, but my question was about the last time you met. How many rounds of negotiations have you had between the parties? Because CCMA is at a point where it becomes clear that you can't find each other. I'm not hearing that record of either engaging via Zoom, given the difficulties that we are facing, or any other digital platform, or actually having a socially distanced conversation.
No, unfortunately, I don't have a record of the actual dates on which we met, but I can confirm that we've met on multiple occasions, and that I can provide to the media. I just don't have that at my disposal right now.
All right. I understand that. All right. Lastly, what's been the impact in as far as the running of Gautrain is concerned?
So we've had a contingency plan which we've implemented from the start of business this morning, and essentially the plan was to continue to deliver train service to our passengers, particularly over the peak period. So I'm quite pleased to advise that trains operated at a 15-minute interval this morning, as opposed to 30 minutes as we initially advised. The morning peak period was between 5:30 and 9, and the same will apply in the afternoon peak period between 3 and 7. This means that trains will be available every 15 minutes on both the east-west and the north-south lines. Trains were unfortunately not available during the off-peak period today, but the bus and the minibus services were unaffected, and they continue to operate according to schedule.
All right, thank you for that. That's Kesagee from Kesagee Nayager from the Gautrain, talking to us about the strike there that is on the go by workers affiliated to the trade union Numsa.